Hey everyone, Kevin from Kevin's Aquariums. Coming at you with another video on Monday. Uh, just wanted to say thank you to the people who have subscribed to my channel. I did set a goal of hitting 25 subscribers by the end of the year. As of just a couple days ago, I did hit 30. I am setting a new goal to hit 60 by the end of March. Again, I do want to say thank you to everyone who has subscribed to the channel. And hopefully I get more to help me keep going and reaching my goal. Doing a video today to just kind of give you guys a little backstory on how I got into the hobby. I started roughly about 4 years ago. My brother was actually in the hobby, and he was getting a new tank, which actually happens to be this tank right here, my 125 gallon tank. He called me up and asked me if I would help him go and pick up the tank and bring it into his, pick it up and haul it for him and bring it to his house. When I did, he offered to give me a 55 gallon tank in as a way of saying thank you. I set up that tank first as a community tank. When I had it all up and running, I had new tank syndrome for a while. Basically, I couldn't leave it alone. Didn't really know a whole lot. Couldn't figure out why the fish kept dying. Started doing a bunch of research on YouTube. Came across the KG Tropicals channel. Watched a lot of his videos to get me through, along with some advice from some friends, and eventually found a lot more Facebook groups and YouTube channels and everything to help me get through all the issues that I was going through at the time. And after I had got my tank established and everything, I did switch over to African cichlids. Actually just cichlids in general. For quite a while I kept Africans and South Americans together. Didn't really have any issues there. The South Americans are big enough that the Africans didn't really bother them. The South Americans that I had at the time were pretty mellow and didn't bother the Africans at all. So what ended up happening was my brother was having issues with his 90 gallon tank leaking and asked me if I wanted it. I told him I'd take it and gave it to me for free, which is, at that time I ended up selling my 55 gallon tank and setting up the 90. Turned out that it wasn't the actual tank leaking, it was the, sorry, that was my cat. Turned out it wasn't the actual tank leaking, it was the filter leaking. He thought that was a possibility if that's what it was. So I checked that first. Turns out that's what was leaking, not the tank. So had that up and running for a while. Then they offered to sell me this tank here. Bought this tank from them and ended up giving the 90 to a friend of mine. Now, here we are a few years later. I had this set up in my kitchen at my old house for 2 years, roughly. Again, until I came down with multiple tank syndrome. I had all my fish in this tank here, Africans, South Americans, and then eventually I got the 45 gallon that I'm now using as a hospital tank. Had that set up in the living room at the old house for a while. Was trying to grow out fry in there. At one point I had the 125 gallon, the 45 gallon, and I had a small 10-gallon on the counter in the kitchen that was run by a sponge filter. When I had a holding female, I'd put her in the 10-gallon by herself until she spit the fry out, and then after she spit the fry out, I'd leave her in there for a day or two, and then I'd move her back into this tank here, and then once the fry got a little bit bigger, I'd move them into the 45-gallon, which at the time was running on 2 sponge filters. And then eventually, through some time, it took me a little while, but I convinced my wife to let me buy a bigger tank for the living room, which is when I bought the 90-gallon that the Africans are in now. And at that point, once I got the 90-gallon, I finally had a tank that was big enough to hold all the Africans that I had, and was able to separate the two. Since I've separated them, I haven't really had any issues. Again, didn't really have any issues with having both of them in the 125-gallon. Lost my train of thought. But yeah, didn't really have any issues with having both of them in this tank here. Although, since I have moved them or separated them, I don't seem to be getting any fry out of the Africans anymore. When I had them all in the 125-gallon, every once in a while I'd see some fry. I mean, it wasn't very often, but I did see some every once in a while. We've been here in the new house now for, say, roughly about 3.5, 4 months, I believe. About 3.5. And since we've moved, I have not seen a holding female in the 90-gallon tank. Don't know if that has anything to do with moving. Maybe it stressed them out too much. We did move cities, and I know we have a water softener house, and maybe the water parameters are too different from what they were used to. Maybe it's just going to take them some time to adjust. Not 100% sure, but hopefully they get everything figured out, or hopefully they adjust to it soon. Because within the next year, I am hoping to set up a breeding system in the office and try breeding one of my orange blotch peacocks that I have. If you go back and watch my 90-gallon, the video on my 90-gallon tank, I do have 2 OB peacocks in there right now. The one that's got a lot of blue is one that we purchased. Actually purchased him when he was 3/4 of an inch to an inch long, and not really showing any color at all, and was very surprised with how he turned out. I think I got him for $5.50, $6. It was just one fish that I was willing to take a chance on, and he turned out awesome. The other OB peacock in there, I believe, is, I know that's one that I raised from a fry. I believe he is from the male OB peacock that I have in there. Hoping to try and breed him again. I know I do have at least 2 females in there. The other ones might be males and just not showing color yet. I guess for right now, I will put just him with 2 females into a tank once I get them all set up and running, and see if they'll breed that way. Yeah, so if anybody has any questions, comments, Any thoughts on why my Africans have stopped breeding since I moved? If you think I'm correct on my thinking, just let me know in the comment section below. Other than that, you guys have a great week, and see you in next Monday's video.